Well, that looks suspiciously like an ad, so I think we're streaming. I'll go post on Twitter about it. Streaming dev. Spell it right. Okay, so in the last week we managed to get a lot of stuff done. This week we're going to do more stuff. If only everything was as simple. I'm going to start by just turning these all into components. Right now they are not. I think it would be best if they were. Pretty straightforward, right? But we do have a couple of small issues. And those issues are that almost all of these parts are rotated incorrectly and will mirror wrong when we put them into our system. So we're going to go into our models and fix it up so they're not mirrored incorrectly anymore. So everything that has an axis off to the left is not going to work out. We're going to have to rotate it. Problem is that a lot of these have mirror modifiers that are going to screwing us over. So if we rotate this by 50 degrees, like so, then apply that rotation, we end up with a pretty screwy mirror modifier. So we're going to have to keep that in. But that worked out. Yeah, that's correct. This, just rotate Z, B, Y, rotation, change it to X instead of Z. This, rotate Y, rotation. This, rotate -90. Y, the rotation. And this is, I think we might have to deal with that in some other way, but that should be all of our things now correctly rotated. Except for this guy. Rotation. So we are. Good. We should be back to fully functional, and all of these should now be pointed in the correct way, which means that we can do a little bit of optimization here and there. Later on, we're going to have to add in a lot of complexity to level of detail it, and that's going to be an issue, but, get to it when we get to it. And although it clearly says that I'm streaming, I have a sneaking suspicion that I'm not. Because for once, there are no names. Oh, wait, it says that Pink Hair and B. Wheatley are here. Hopefully, I'm not muted. We will find out in the long run, I suppose. For now, let's go ahead and build up some of these as correctly created ship components. So here, put a ship component label on it. Go ahead and put a box collider. And our manufacturer is going to be Hub. In the catalog, T1 quartz. Ship type is going to be a Corvette. And the description is going to be a sack of supplies. Now, we already created this one last week when I signed off, but I had created it by putting it inside of another object, and that was not how I wanted to do it. In the long run, we'll have to put it inside of another object due to LOD concerns, but for now, there's no reason to make it more complicated than it has to be. So there's our 4-meter cargo pouch, which we will rename to supply pouch. I'm going to go ahead and add in some materials, such as cloth and hull. I want to use hull heavy for that. We can use anything we want for this other section. Tried chain last week. It doesn't look great, though. I might switch it out for something else like dark cloth. None of these particularly look like zippers. I should just have a zipper material, but I don't. So use glowing. I'll make it warning. Actually, I think making it warning orange is probably the best option. All right. So we are also going to want to add in a mix-in supply, the resource stockpile. Here it is. It's going to be supplies. I don't know how many. 100 is fine. There we go. Delete the old one, add the new in. There we have it. Let's keep a move on. Just create this engine here. Put in the materials we're going to need. The engine is a little bit more complex because it has a cap on the front that's tilted, but we'll get to that later. We're not going to do that right now. Now we'll just take the materials and put them on. So I believe that we were using a heavy hull here and a normal hull here, but I might have had that backwards. I can't remember anymore. Particles are going to be I must have been doing it the other way around. That doesn't look right. I can't remember whether we did dark on the outside or not. No, I think this was right, and I just forgot to recolor the backside. That's fine. We're going to call this a heavy thruster, heavy ion thruster. And it's in the hub catalog of the T1 Corvettes. And the description, hub, heavy thruster, T1 Corvettes, with a description of a large thruster that is extremely fuel efficient, but doesn't go fast. And because this is a T1 technology, it's going to take a small amount of T1 pricing, and also a small amount of 0 pricing because it's made out of stuff. There we go. We'll go ahead and give it 2 points of armor. Although that stuff is all just placeholder for now. So once we have started to do this and we've started to create all of these objects, there are a couple of details that we need to make sure work out. One of them is that they all need to be on the correct layer. Hey Seymour, I just started, so I don't know who you were trying to catch, but found me. So arranging these components into an actual components rather than being free-floating objects. One of the issues we're having is, of course, that these are all offset inside of the file, so we'll just un-offset them. It's easy enough. Now that we've done that, we can use those here in the game world, try to design our ship and such. Play and wait for 15 minutes because it's the first time it's booted up. When we hit tab, it'll load all these things up, and here is T1 Corvette's manifest and the ion thruster that we were. See? So today we're going to be working on our camera mostly. I did some of this to kind of pave the way, but one of the things that we're going to want to do with our camera, I have to fix this so it'll work. One of the things we're going to have to do with our camera is we're going to want to have some guidelines. In addition to fixing how the camera works, we're going to need to have a representation of the mirror planes and the flat planes. So I guess we'll just go ahead and build those right now. There's no reason to wait. So those are literally planes, like this. And we just stick them 0, 0, 0. And I'm going to rotate this one 90 degrees. Because this will be our mirror plane. And we'll just make it big. This will do. Maybe a little bit bigger than this axis, like. And I don't think we need it quite that long on the z-axis. There we go. And we don't need this mesh renderer. We're not going to be using it. Instead, we're going to be using this as a particle system. Interesting choice of default particles you've got there. So the particles, we were going to have them emit from the shape of the plane by just choosing a mesh, or rather a mesh renderer, and picking our mesh. It's turned off though. I'm not sure whether or not that's it does work. All right. So then we're obviously going to want a speed of 0, and we're going to just adjust the times to make this look right. Bring down the alpha. So. And now we have these particles with no material component, and that's why they look so stupid. So let's go ahead and add in a material for our particles. We've got loads of materials. Here's particle glow, but that's not actually intended for particles. Don't know if we actually have any dedicated particle. Oh, we don't. All right, so we'll create one. Material. We'll call this spark. Why did it? That was odd. I guess it was because I had created. That's interesting. I didn't know that could happen. I created a material for a particular shader by right-clicking on the shader. I didn't know you could do that. That's a neat trick. So this will be our particle sparkle. And this particle glow. We're going to change this to being an ion glow because a particle actually has a meaning, and it means that it's going to be a particle effect. Like this. We'll go ahead and select a texture. I can see that we have our textures back. That's nice. But for now, we're going to go ahead and just use this gentle ball texture. Later on, we'll change it to something that's a little bit better. Oh, and now I have a huge Lego ad spamming me. Why is it spamming me with ads on my preview? If my stream just crashed, let me know. And if my stream didn't just crash, let me know. That's more useful. Anyway, let's grab this thing here. Call this the mirror plane. And we'll go drop our new particle sparkle into our renderer. And you can see that the shape is really quite odd. And I'm not actually sure why that is. Why is it stretched like that? Oh, I know why. Because the plane is stretched. See? So we can't stretch it like I thought we could. Instead, what we're going to have to do is have the plane be a sub-object here. So that's not too bad. Just stick the plane in. Big. Point at that mesh renderer. So, look, it's still scaling. This is really interesting. I didn't know. Seymour says that the left half of the screen distorts? That's really strange. I don't know what could be causing that. I also don't know what could be causing this awkward scaling. It shouldn't be scaling like this. Well, you know what? I can just make it into a box and not use a mesh at all. Yeah, there really is no option for a plane. It has to be a box, but that's okay. I can just make this box huge. 20,000. Not 1,000. That's too much. 200. And then what we'll do is have the color be something a little bit less space, a little bit less backgroundy like this, so we know it's not stars. The size is probably right. And that time is probably right as well. Let's take a look and see whether or not this looks a try and huh, is it? Should be right there. Where Oh, of course, I can't see it because the camera is set to look at ship size only. What about that? Yeah, it's better. So the idea is that this sort of effect will let you know where the mirror plane is. So we're going to do a couple of small details. We're going to pre-warm it, and we're going to increase the emission rate. And now, when I pull up the T1 Corvette manifest and pull in an ion thruster, I can see that it's mirroring. Now, in the long run, I'll probably go with a more complex solution that involves reacting to how close the player camera or cursor is to the plane. The way it is right now is awfully vague, but it should do for a first take. Anyway, the next thing we're going to have to make is the bounce plane. This is the plane where the ship components are going to naturally fall towards. This can be raised or lowered via keyboard commands, but basically they remove the thinking that, something will be n steps from the cursor or whatever. So we're going to just change the shape to be this. We're also going to change the color to be orange. And we're going to increase the emission rate one time. I think I can change them to be more obvious if I, A, reduce the size here, 0, and I'll make it 0 here, and B, I can change the billboard type to a vertical billboard, horizontal billboard. Unfortunately, those don't have the same meaning because they're screen space. Is that really a vertical billboard? That doesn't look like a vertical billboard. Huh. Well, at least the horizontal billboard is flat. So with that in mind, I can still continue to use this, but they're so vague and hard to see. Up the size and up the number. Go down here, up the size. Say 60. Maybe I should offset them some. Yeah, it might be best if instead of using a particle effect, I just use an actual visual, a mesh visual. So let's go ahead and try that on for size. So first we will do our mirror plane, which we'll put here. Mirror plane will give it a material that is nice and mirror planey, which would basically be, first off, we don't need basically be some kind of transparent material. We do have a couple of transparent materials, but none that are good for what we need. Hey, Sarden. So what we're going to do instead is create a new material. Call this the mirror plane material. And we will stick it in. And obviously, it's time to customize it. So it's going to be more transparent than this. Come on. Transparent, and we'll lower down the alpha. We're also going to make it blue, like this. Yeah, something like that. It doesn't really look blue right now, but change the emissions. What if I only gave it emissions and didn't give it this? Can't see it because it's not in right. So there we are. Try it like this. There we go. So there's the mirror plane. Let's go ahead and extend it. Now we're going to duplicate this cube. We could call it mirror plane. Duplicate it for our ground plane. 105. That is not the right rotation. So our ground plane is going to be the mirror plane, but different color and slightly less obvious. So the color we'll use for the ground plane is going to be an orangey color, like this. It's going to be... Let's see how that looks. Wonker says, what are you working on? I'm going to work on cameras and stuff. Right now, I am setting it up to be a little bit less annoying to try and see where your ship is going to go. Sarden says, why 90.00001? That's just a floating point error that doesn't matter, so I'm going to ignore it. Seymour says, mirrors and camera stuff. Yep, well, this is mirror ring. It's not an actual mirror. But it's really, like, shiny. Even though it's invisible, apparently the smoothness still creates reflection. That's better. It's a little shiny. Still a little too obvious, though. Let's go ahead and change these colors to be a little bit more difficult to see. If I were to make this only blue, I think that would be a benefit. Yeah, it's much better. And then over here, we can make this one only red, yellow. But you can see how obvious that is. It's really, really obvious. Like, even when it's completely transparent, I can still see it really clearly. Look at how obvious that is. And I think it's because the sun is shining on it. If I make this black, it doesn't change anything. If we make it an unlit transparency, it's gonna have to require it to. It's asking me for a texture, and I don't want a texture. If I make it an unlit transparent UI, I can choose a tint. That's better. But yeah, I thought so. Without a texture, it's going to just appear invisible. If I give it a texture like this, no, it's still invisible. Do. Well, let's try fade instead of transparent. See whether or not we can get anything out of there. That. Okay, so fade actually works. It makes it properly invisible, rather than reflecting awkwardly. But then the glow doesn't show up anymore. That's interesting. So if we give it just a little bit of alpha, you can see it. It doesn't take much. That's really fascinating. I really need an unlit transparent object, but I don't have the specific thing I need to make that work at the moment, so we'll go ahead and leave it as is. Change this one to fade as well, and make it have 2 here. 10. Oh no, I guess that's not going to work. This is really strange. I don't really understand how the transparency stuff works at the lower end. I think it's built mostly for glass and not for things that are like 99.9% transparent. All right, there we go. So let's see how well this looks when we try to build a ship on it. When we pull up something like this and we decide that we want a heavy ion thruster, you can see that we can tell where it's going to fall because we understand the 2 planes involved. Now, those visuals are going to have to change in the long run, but for now, they look okay. We can just go ahead and build the ship, understanding where things are. And if we shift this plane up or down, then we'll be able to see the plane moving up and down, so it should be good. Not as pretty as I wanted, but it's not too bad. Now the next step is to refine the camera, and I said that last time we were going to go with a first-person shooter style camera, and I think that's still the best idea. So let's get to it. Right now what we have is a situation where we use this ship construction method, and this boots up the exterior construction controller. The exterior construction controller has its own camera control schema here. This camera control schema contains all of the data that is used to control the camera, but there's no variant of it for first-person control. So that's what we're going to build now. We're going to build a variant for first-person control. If it ever opens. No, it opens. Gosh, this is taking forever. Thank you. Close it, start it up again. I rebooted recently, so everything's like, oh, I have to boot up from nothing. It's going to take me 10 years. So the camera control schema is descended from MonoBehavior. But the problem here is that this camera control schema has a lot of set activities that can't be easily overridden because there's no virtual attached to them. This camera control schema makes a lot of assumptions, and I think if you go back and watch those episodes, you'll find I specifically said that the camera control schema sucked and I was going to have to change it, and that is true. I'm definitely going to have to go change it. Where the heck is my... There you are. Make sure I'm not missing too many things. So, right now, all of our camera control stuff descends from a MonoBehavior, but we're going to go ahead and make another tier. Our camera control schema is going to be basically an interface. We're going to have to leave it as a MonoBehavior because Unity doesn't allow us to drag and drop interfaces, but we will go ahead and create a script called a camera control note or pivot. What do I call it? Pivot, I guess. And this will contain the same information, the same techniques that the camera control schema does right now, all of this stuff. So we're just going to copy it into the other directory. And we'll have to figure all that stuff out later if we want to keep using it. But this will be camera control schema. Go. So the big issues are these manual updates and the camera updates. Now, the camera update happens inside of something here. How does the camera control update get? Here it is. So if camera control enabled and input.get button shifting. So right now what we've got it set up to do is that this camera control update only gets called when you're holding shift. So we're going to go ahead and put that stuff into the main object. So we need this public virtual void manual update. Going to need the camera control. And we're going to need a public virtual void camera update. Transform target. There we go. So these are the pieces that are universal with our current camera setup, whereas the rest of this is going to be specific to each of these systems. So we just delete this part. Perfect. That should be all we need to do. We're going to have to recreate a lot of camera control schema stuff. So debug.log warning, camera control schema is not a valid control class. It's a parent class. Normally, you wouldn't have to say that. You would just make this an interface, but camera control schema, it can't be an interface. You can't drag interfaces. All right, so the next step here is we're going to create a new camera control schema. Camera control first person. On my flow says, what do you actually work? Is it game development as well? No. It's software, but I do database stuff for a green energy company. And I'm trying to get that annoying lilt. I've developed a lilt in my voice, which reminds me of a Valley Girl. So I'm going to try and stop asking questions whenever I talk, because I think that's very Goldbloomy, and it's not what I want to sound like. So, you know. Oh, dear. There we are. So here's the camera update, and what happens here is it responds to our inputs as a first-person camera should. So float x equals input.getAxis horizontal. Float y equals input.getAxis vertical. And we'll want to move ourselves, so public float vertical speed, or forward speed 5, strafe speed 2, and what do you want to call it? Going up and down, vertical speed 2. I went to a lot, well, I taught myself how to program because I'm quite old, and there weren't really any classes below college level at the time. So I learned on an Apple II a long time ago in a galaxy pretty close to this one. And then I went to college for programming. So I did both. I'm self-taught, and I also went to college for it. But I got to admit, I didn't pick up a lot of the more advanced programming classes. I never had to. So, I'm not talking about advanced in terms of complex topics. I'm talking about advanced in terms of business applied topics. So if you want to talk about best source control practices and stuff, I'm kind of rusty on that. If you want to talk about neural nets, that I can talk about all day. But the business side of software development has always been not my best. So let's move around. Transform dot local position plus equals transform dot right times x times strafe speed times, I guess we can do that outside of it, times time dot delta time. And the other one will be plus transform dot forward times y, no, yeah, that's right, times forward speed. Transform.local position. Random assortment letter says, do you have any advice for majors of CS? Well, unfortunately, the CS industry, programming industry, has radically changed over the past decades. So I'm pretty out of touch with what you should do. I can tell you that making connections is far more important than actually learning to code. Even if you're a crap coder, as long as, I mean, if you're really crap, there's no hiding it. But even if you're not an excellent coder, you can usually figure things out before you get fired. So getting hired is more important than anything else, and the easiest way to do that is to know people. If you got a friend that'll vouch for you, then a friend of your friends will hire you. And that's really the way to get jobs, if that's what you're asking. In terms of topics, you should definitely learn how to code in Lisp, just to have that shock. Makes you think twice. And you should also learn how to use source control. Be real comfortable with source control. Z is an absolute value, not a time.delta time value. I can actually put it up here. There we go. I think our vertical speed would be better off as 0.2, something like that. So that should give us basic control, but we're not tracking with the mouse. So let's track with the mouse. The way that this normally works is you track X and Y on separate objects, so that when you move forward, you don't like shoot off into the sky because your legs are tracking the X-axis of the mouse, but not the Y-axis. On the other hand, we do want you to shoot off into the sky, so that's fine by us. So we're going to take our inputs again. So input.getAxis mouse X. Might be mouse X with no space. I can't remember. Input.getAxis Y. And we will say transform.local rotation dot there is a rotate around command. I don't, oh, it's probably on the transform.rotate. There it is. And we will pick some angles here. We're going to take it as vector 3 dot up, and we're going to use a space, local space. But we're also going to have to tell it how much to rotate, obviously. There we are, float angle, and that's just going to be X. We're going to go ahead and add in some mouse sensitivity. Public float mouse sensitivity X. 5. Mouse sensitivity Y equals 3. We're also going to put in some bools. Invert X, invert. If invert X, then X times equals -1. Y times equals -1. And we're going to multiply this times our sensitivity. And all of this only happens when you're holding shift. So I'm not risking the fact that this will be executing a lot extra. These rotation calls are not terribly cheap, but because it only happens while you're holding shift, I'm okay with it. All right, let's go ahead and try this out on for size, shall we? We have some errors, so camera schema.celestial scaling. Okay, so we're actually not looking for camera schema anymore. Well, you know, we should probably put that on the camera schema. Oh, camera schema. Yeah, so we do have to put it on the. It's fine. Let's grab it. Cut. And later on, we'll have to polish this some, so let's put that in as a to-do. Separate these things out. They're tangled up in classes. There we are. So now we're going to replace this camera control schema with a first-person camera control schema. Put up here. Schema. Perfect. All right, let's see whether or not this works. Hitting play. On My Flow wants to ask how young Ptu are. I'm old. I'm not terribly, terribly old, but I'm pretty old. It's not responding. So something is screwing up here, and it might be... It might be that our camera control schema is screwed up. Let's go ahead and take a look here. Debug.log manual update called camera for... I think that it might simply be that this... there's the problem, I think. That's probably it. So the camera is being correctly called, but it doesn't seem to actually be properly updating. Debug.log camera update. First person camera update hit. So it's not working. Holding shift isn't actually calling that function. I probably made some dumb mistake here. The camera control schema manual update calls the camera update when camera... So the problem is that I'm a really stupid person. So now we actually do get the first person camera hit when we hold the right mouse button. But it's not actively making us do any of our turning or... So there's something screwy with the actual update that we... So we're going to just debug all of it. That's funny. This shouldn't be getting called. Because this is in camera update. Camera update should only get called by manual update. Show me an error. No, that's not the... Interesting. That's odd. What's calling? Manual update getting called by player control update. So the manual update is getting called and it's calling the camera update. Oh, is this... I bet I'm not awake yet. No, here it is. And not input.get button shifting. All right. So that's probably what I needed. Let's try it out. So now when I hold shift, this works, but I probably want to make it so that it's not shift, but right mouse click. So that's what we're going to do now. So put .get mouse button. Now I'll probably change that out later. So to do, make this a, or I can just do it now. All right, so cam control. And we're going to go ahead and create a cam control. Spell it right. Always handy. So our negative button doesn't exist, and our positive button is the right mouse button. I don't know how to do that. We want to invert it and take it as a key or mouse button. How do I make this a mouse button? Well, let's take a look at Fire. Joystick button 0. Do I say joystick button 1? Is that mouse button 1? Joystick button 1? Probably. Oh, here it is. So cancel is the same, joystick button 1. It's fine. Doesn't seem to be taking. Unity, input, mouse, right mouse button. No, not get mouse button down. What's the entry name for mouse buttons in the input manager? Mouse 0 or mouse 1. Interesting. So it's not joystick, it's mouse. Oh, here it is. So that's the right mouse button, but it's still not actually doing anything. Which leads me to believe that my problem is that it's not on the right control system. It's supposed to be controlling the main camera, and it's not because it's stuck on the editor. So rather than the transform, we're going to need to apply this to the target. Not the target. We're going to need to apply it to the main camera. So we do have a camera on a stick, and this does have a live camera. And should be able to just say this. We probably want to fix that up later. Ah, there we are. Much better. So one of the issues we have when we do this is that we skew. As you can see, we're not pointing directly north-south. Also, our version of right and left are screwed up. Transform T equals camera on a stick. T. That'll make it a little bit easier later when I have to switch this out for something precise. As I was saying, though, the problem with this kind of free-floating situation is that when you turn the mouse, you end up getting this really skewed view that no longer looks directly down the plane. It's up is no longer up. So what we're going to want to do is make sure to keep our up always pointed up, and we can do that by setting the up angle. The problem is I'm not 100% sure that is a standalone option. I think that we have to... Oh, it can be set. Let's see whether or not this acts correctly. Ooh, Well, technically it works. Unfortunately, it resets the rotation. So we're going to have to do something like look at and then pick a position in front of the transform. And then specify vector3.up as our up axis. The problem is that that's annoyingly expensive and a dumb way to do it. I'm sure there's a better way to make this work, but as you can see, it is giving me a nice free camera. So right now, I think I need to radically increase the strafing speed of this. So both 5 for the moment. Yeah, that's better. And we can use the mouse wheel. Oh, that's tough. Using the mouse wheel while right-clicking is not great. Probably have to come up with another way to do vertical offset if I want it to. Either way, that's far too much of a vertical speed cutback, so we're going to this point. That's a little bit better. Obviously, we can also scale it based on the size of the ship and some other details later on. For a start, this isn't too bad. Let's take a look at our camera on a stick. We're going to want to make this ship cam offset 0. We're going to want to keep it 0 the whole time. Okay, so that's good. This is literally all we had to do in order to make our ship editing not quite as crap. So if I hit tab, I pull up, let's click a lot here, pull up a heavy ion thruster, here it is. And if I hit shift, I can rotate this so that it will fit like so. Oof. Let's combine it with some of our early era Corvette stuff just for kicks. Like the cladding, the 4-meter cladding. There we are. I have to work on the responses that it gives when you're trying to rotate things, but this is fun, combining different spaceship parts. Don't you think it's fun? Look at. And then we can put in the cap cladding 4 to 3. You can actually put down. The engines don't have a bounding box. Damn it! Without a bounding box, I can't click on them. Made them, but I forgot to finish making them. It's just dumb. So we actually have one in the universe somewhere. Here it is. Add in a box collider. Apply, but that may mean that we have to... So what do you all think of this basic idea of reflection plane? You know what I think I can do is I'm going to take the reflection plane. This. Just have a corner. So if we pull up a heavy ion thruster like this, I should check and see whether or not you're holding down shift. Because obviously we would want you to let you move faster if you're holding shift. That would definitely be a small optimization I can do. I don't want the small ships. Those are a little too small. So let's put in cladding. Put in cap. That's the wrong cap, isn't it? It's all pointed the wrong way. So the heavy ion thruster is pointed backwards, unfortunately. Well, as it turns out, now that we actually have them set up with a collider, we can... maybe I will have that work even if it's not being held down at the moment. Oh, interesting. Done broke it at some point. I have to really polish the exact angle these things work. That's a little bit awkward. So, what do you guys think? Does this seem like it's a reasonable setup? I know that you can't feel what I'm feeling, but compared to all that confusing situation before, what do you think? Take a screenshot of it and post it to Twitter while I'm thinking. Creating the interface for letting players build and save ships. Screenshot Saturday. Take another image of saved it to hit edit. I sure hope Numpkin isn't actually some sort of horrible slur that I haven't heard before. All right. So with this kind of combination of elements, you can see how you could create ships out of different sorts of suppliers very easily and mix and match to find your favorite pieces. And that would let you rapidly set up your ship in exactly the way you like it to be set up. I think I screwed that one up. Now, I thought it was so that if I middle clicked, it would... oh, it was just pressing shift. Okay. There's lots of stuff I have to fix here. Make it a little bit more bearable to use for the player. So what happens if we put in one of our sacks, supply pouches on the inside here? They're a little too large to fit nicely, but we could fit in a single one, just like in the... And maybe we could put in power core. Oh wow, the power cores are broken. I'll have to fix that before we send this out. See if we can get a 4 to 3 cladding. Which direction is away? This would be totally pointless though, because those are the wrong kind of fuel. We need only a little bit of fuel to run these ion engines. But let me tell you, it's not rocket fuel that we... I have got to make it so that shift accelerates us. This is just too painful to use without shift. So that's what I'll do right. If input dot get key down, get key code dot shift. We can let that be changed, but I don't think it ever gets changed by anyone. There we are. Now our camera should move fast. Much better. Right. Seymour says that he's seeing glitches. Great. Wow, that's a pretty bad glitch. I don't know what that is. I'm not doing anything. Hmm. Well, I am both not in Germany, so that might be it. Obviously, this is something that can be set in our settings menu. So it's not critical that we get it absolutely right. Basically, I'm just wondering whether I should double or triple your speed when you're holding shift. I'm beginning to think that triple might be better. All of these are going to be turned into static variables, and then you can edit them in the control menu later. That feels better. I think I like that. So there's still a lot of stuff left to do before I give this to you guys, but most of the stuff that's left to do is just bug fixing and stapling down pieces. So let's get to it. So here we have a large side mount. Let's go ahead and put on some materials there. Some heavy hole. Some hole. Screwed that up. What happened to my standard hole? Interesting. There is a material called hole. Oh, I'm in the wrong directory. I'm in the automatic directory, which is not where it to be. So that's better. Create ourselves a bounding box. And we're also going to want to make it a ship component. This one is just structural, so it doesn't need any subcomponents. It's created by Hub. Catalog is T1 Corvettes. The ship type is going to be Corvette. Description is going to be a nice big mounting bracket. And I'm going to make it free because it's just a small chunk of metal. Use it as armor if you'd like, but it'll be a little heavy. Maybe not. Be a little weak. Anyway, let's drop this large mount into our T1 Corvettes. Continue on our way. First we got to... So here is a 2-meter mount split. So we'll call this a split. We'll just drop in some materials for it. Some hull. Some heavy hull. And some glow, I think. I think I want some warning orange, maybe? Which I'd prefer. I think it's a warning situation. Perfect. Added a box collider. Added a ship component. This is also just structural, so hub. One Corvettes. Corvette. Description is a forked, angled 2-meter mounting system. Drop it into our directory. Random assortment of letters says the Z popping when the ship piece is highlighted doesn't look good to me. Well, I can actually get rid of the Z popping if it is bad, but the reason I use it is so that you can see what you're highlighting with very specific, you want to be able to definitely see that you've highlighted something. So, for example, if I put a 4-meter cargo core inside of this, like so, I want to be able to tell whether I've highlighted the 4-meter cargo core or the outer shell. So if I highlight the outer shell or the 4-meter cargo core, you can see how you can really tell the difference. I had planned in the long run to use a more powerful rendering tool that would show this as some kind of cutout, like a blue, like a blue ghosty visual. But I never really got around to it. I don't have that particular setup. I'm open to suggestions. I just don't have a good shader to do that with, as far as I know. So this is just a tank, huh? A rocket fuel tank? Why would you need a rocket fuel tank? Maybe it's an oxygen tank? Yes, it can be both. Let's go ahead and make it both. So first we'll make it the rocket. Hub, D1 Corvettes. Type Corvette. Description, a tank of rocket fuel if you're not using ion engines. A little bit of price to it because it's rocket fuel. It's a little bit expensive. Let's go put on some materials to make it look pretty. So we got some hull. Warning orange is kind of the default that we use for these. Question is whether I want warning orange on the caps or on the body. I think it looks best on the caps. And then we'll use maybe an ion glow, do you think? Just to make it really out. I think that was originally intended to be a heavy hull, but I think ion glow might look better. Well, let's take a look at how it looks like with heavy. I think I like this better. Random assortment letter says, I think making the parts bounding box pop to the front would feel better. I don't have a shader that can do that. If you have a shader that can do that, let me know. Otherwise, it's going to have to wait until I hit the refinement stage and start to build lots of shaders. Think that it's rocket fuel that I want? Let's take a look at some alternatives here. Just called fuel, not rocket fuel. That's fine. This one we will I don't think we need an oxygen tank or anything. We'll just call it a hydrogen tank. And the hydrogen tank will have a different set of materials on it. Heavy clouds. Yay! That is not going to work, is it? Something else. What's going on with these materials? They seem odd. Oh, it's just on top of the... All right, let's try that stuff again, because maybe some of those might have worked. So that's mirror. Mirror plane. Definitely not. Just trying to find something that looks decent. Technically, I should probably just create another hydrogen blue. We'll make this blue. Both of those need to have one of their materials replaced. Full glow instead of ion glow. Guess it might not matter. All right, so we'll apply, and then over here, we're going to dump this in as a new object. Now we've got a hydrogen tank and a rocket tank. Great. Now this is our 6-point mount. Let's go ahead and set it up. Escalator. Ship component. Manufacturer hub. T1. That's correct. Description is a 6-way 2-meter adapter. Lots of devices. Go ahead. Six. And start to put materials on it. So if we got some whole glow here, get pop a little bit. It might be a better job for heavy hull. That's probably what I intended. Ordinary here. That does look right, more or less. Let's drop it in. Oh, well, here is one of our favorites, the maneuvering jet. So let's drop these in the proper arrangement. Some maneuvering jet. Sorry, I got distracted by thinking about something else for a little bit. Thinking about the difference between storing hydrogen and storing water. All right. We're going to need a bounding box. Letter, I mean. We're going to need a ship component. We don't have the ship components for the engines implemented in this version yet, so we're going to leave that out. It's just going to be a generic ship component hub. T1 Corvettes. Ship type Corvette. And this is going to be a gas-powered maneuvering jet. Gas-fueled jet. Water is probably more effective as a thing there. So that's the reason I was thinking about it, because the ion engines can run on hydrogen, which can be taken out of water. But I think that that'll require a secondary system. They'll have some sort of converter if you really want to do that. Either way, it's not very important. All right, let's put on some materials here. Oh, some morning orange. Thought I do. I think there's any more. There are a couple of other materials here. What's this? This is the maneuvering jet ascension, right? Why are some of those still default material? That's so weird. I can swear I'm looking straight at other materials. It's pretty strange. Oh, I remember this part. This part's got a particle glow on the inside. Technically, it's not going to be particles coming out of there, but it's just in close enough. Close enough setup. There, we've got our maneuvering jet. Let's drop it into our resources. Hurrah! So this is another engine, but I think this is the old engine that we're not actually going to use, or is this the new engine that's better than the one I named engine? Well, here is the other engine. No, this is definitely the better engine. Don't think I want this one. Let's leave it out. Here we have a cryo storage, which would just be a hydrogen or helium storage. Don't really know which. I think it might be better to store hydrogen and run everything off of hydrogen instead of helium. For a lot of reasons. Let's go ahead and make it a hydrogen storage. Now later on we'll have to decide whether or not this needs to have a power drain or something to, it's keeping stuff super cold. So if you run out of power, it might end up leaking all of your precious, precious hydrogen in space. But that kind of effect might be too annoying. So we'll have to experiment some. I actually have a fair number of people watching for some reason, including Eric Proton and Fufensu and Na7 Na. I think the rest of you I already talked to. Schwabenfail, another German. I wonder if he's also seeing the glitches. Put in our hull here. This. Get ourselves some hydrogen blue. It's best here. Some. No, I think it's better inside. After all, after I thought, do some heavy hull. That seems fine. Manufacturer's hub, catalog is T1. That, and the description is tank of hydrogen kept at almost 0. Now, freezing the hydrogen isn't going to take you a lot of T1 technology, but I'm going to make it relatively expensive out of T0 technology, so you don't just stick on thousands of them. I mean, you can if you really want to. Here is our radio dish. Collider. Put on some materials and see whether we can make it look decent. We'll try for low there just to make it look like there's something going on. We might change that later. We're definitely going to change a lot of this stuff later. Largely just setting it up for prototyping purposes. Is our radio dish. Looking suave. Ship component. Manufacturer is D1 Corvette. Radio dish for long-range scans and communication. Radio dish is going to use up a little bit T1 tech, at least at the moment. I think that, and I'll make it real fragile. So all of this stuff is, of course, just there to make it feel okay at the moment. It's going to all have to be tweaked and changed. And yeah, B. Wheatley says if you run out of power, you'd suffer boil off. That's definitely the case. I just don't know whether or not that would be fun. That's the question. Are you really that far behind? Am I like 50 seconds ahead of everyone? That's terrible. I don't have the mission system in this prototype yet either. I must. A mission component, there it is. So the user status technical and the mission status scanning and the exercise is 1. Sounds good. We won't add any missions today, but that's fine. Might want to add a mission. Let's go ahead and add a mission. Because we have that mission already set up. What? But I have to reload. Where is my missions? There they are. Scan for minerals. That's what I want. Let's go ahead and re-import it, I guess, because that's what was causing us the problems before. Radio dish and drop it in. Now, this is not a scan for minerals antenna. That's a T0 antenna that does a scan for minerals. T1 antenna would be a lot better at other things, mostly T1 type things. For now, I don't care to create a new mission just yet. Just leave it as it is. Well, B. Wheatley, there is something about this that I haven't made real clear. There's no reason you can't mod the hell out of it, and that includes replacing any kind of overpowered vanilla that you like with weaker stuff or whatever. There's no reason to absolutely stick to the kind of fantastical feel that I'm going for. I'm focusing mostly on trying to make it fun to be aboard these ships, and because of that, I think I'm going to play down the science elements that would actually annoy the hell out of you and make it too dangerous to actually go outside. Does this only have 2? Component, ship component, actually a box collider, and then a ship component. And then this will also have a mission component, mix and mission. And I'm also just going to drop the exact same mission in there, just because it's a placeholder. Oh, for some reason it doesn't show up. Drop it in here. And this will be a communication. Hub catalog is T1. What was it? Ret. And this is a long-range antenna for calling home. This is really a T0 antenna. Let's call it an antenna. This guy over here, we're going to change the description to just scanning. Long range scanning. Long range radio telescope. There we are. That'll do. I've got to save that. Bang. And this, all these things have been mounted properly, except we got a couple more little details here and there. The 2-meter mount flat. Oh, no wonder I was so confused. I confused the 2-meter mount flat with the maneuvering jets. All right. Well, that was why I was so confused. That's fine. Well, the 2-meter mount flat also needs to be set up. Chip component, and obviously we'll want to finish putting the materials on. Gonna need some. We don't need that warning orange, at least not there. Might be better to have it on the inside here, and on the outside we can have some heavy hull. That looks like how I want it to look. Let's call this hub. It's a flat mount. T1 Corvettes. Corvette. A small flat mount for rigidly mounting devices. So we got a couple of these that I'm not sure about including. Some of them I'm not going to include because they are interior boxes. All of these here are interior stuff, and we'll get them from the interior file. That'll be what I work on when I'm trying to finish up here. But the other thing we need to do is delete this. Bang! It's gone! Haha! Select all of these and tell them to stay at 0, 0, 0 and to be scaled at 1. It's hard to believe any of those weren't scaled correctly. That kind of implies that I've got some bad scaling in my my file. Yep, B-Wheatley, I'm going more for a Star Trek-y feel. Not completely, but definitely somewhat. Here we are with all of those devices ready to rumble. We don't have any core devices. We don't have any of the whole hulls. Not even the reactor. So that sort of stuff will have to wait until I finish modeling them, but we can put this stuff into the game world at least. We can set this up to have a radio dish. Shit, how about hydrogen tank 1? Oh, this got renamed to be... Okay, so the fuel tank didn't survive my creation of the hydrogen tank. They both ended up as hydrogen tanks. Let's fix that. So this is the hydrogen tank. It's actually a fuel tank. And we'll need to switch out this hydrogen blue for the warning orange. Be all fixed. Tank now. Camera starting place is pretty awkward. Let's go ahead and start in a place that makes more sense. I actually don't know which direction it's pointing. Backwards or forwards along the ship. Just start here. Rocket fuel tank. Let's use some of those mounts. Where is our heavy mount? at that. It's the wrong scale. By interesting. Someone's gotten screwed up in the file. I just don't know which of these people it is. Let's put in the supply pouch and drop the supply pouch in. It's fine. But that means that this tank is incorrect. All right, that makes sense because I was like, why do we even have this tank? And the reason is the tank isn't modeled correctly and shouldn't be in the list. So we'll just delete both of those tanks for now. I will come back to them. We'll leave them in because I won't release this until I finish modeling a tank that's better. Right. So we've made some pretty good progress. We've got a lot of pieces that need to be fixed and polished, but for the most part, this is ready to be released to you folks. Thinking about doing that next week, next Saturday probably. I've got some small things I still have to do in terms of making it so that these feel right to edit, because as you can see, I'm having a hard time with the rotations and stuff like that. So there's definitely some stuff that has to be tweaked a little bit here and there. But overall, we're really, really close. Aside from it being annoying to use, we're basically ready. Let's go ahead and try and stick on a bunch of flat-mounted hydrogen tanks. So here is one of the restrictions that I have to fix. As you can see, it's mounted at the 0 plane, which is why the 0 plane is being shown. But what I need to make it possible is I need for you to be able to adjust the 0 plane. And right now, there really isn't any way to do that. But that doesn't mean that there can't be one. So what I need to do is go in and edit a couple of the routines here to allow you to change that stuff. And I'm thinking that if you hold Control and press up or down, that'll change the 0 plane. Yeah, I also have to make it so that using your mouse wheel works regardless of whether or not you are currently in the camera update. Ah, fat fingers. All right, so we don't need any of this except for this last chunk. Won't need it. There we are. And that way we'll be able to use mouse wheel to go up and down visually, even when we're not actively holding the right mouse button. Which is good because holding the right mouse button and using the mouse wheel kind of feels weird. I think I need to make this even more sensitive, so. Now, in terms of adjusting the height of the base plane, we're going to need to keep track of the base plane and move it. So to do that, we're going to want to have that happen in our exterior ship construction controller, which is going to load up here any second. So we will have this public variable. Got all these public transforms, cursor, mirror cursor, and base plane. We are. We're going to go ahead and drop the ground plane in there. I guess we'll call it ground plane instead of base plane. I'm going to go ahead and drop the mirror plane inside of the ground plane, and then we will go ahead and drop the ground plane inside of the exterior. Oof. Now down here, we are trying to cast forward a mouse cursor. Here it is. And what we do is we move it to 0. But instead we're going to try and move it to the Z position of the base plane. Here we have it. dy equals ray.origin.y slash raydirection.y. So right here, we're going to switch this out to z equals 0. It's actually going to be y equals ground.y. So float target y equals, so ray.origin.y divided by ray.direction.y will get you the number of steps that you need to take in order to reach that height. So by adding on the ground plane dot transform dot local position just position.y, that should give us the length to the ground plane, not just 0. Let's do a quick check and see whether or not we have any other. No. Don't care about. Well, we'll leave those there just for now. Fix it out. So that should allow us to broadcast to the ground plane. What we need to do is allow the player to change the ground plane. So here's the control update, which has a bunch of details like active cursor and unloaded cursor and all that stuff. What we're going to do is say if input.getAxis or getButton, we don't remember, I don't remember at least, all of the inputs that we actually have. Let's take a look here. So we've got cam control, mode switch is tab. We don't have any anything for control to be part of, so we'll go ahead and add in 23, and this one will be altered controls. And we're also going to allow you to use the right control. That should do. So if you're holding down altered control, then if input.getButton down vertical float y equals input.getAxis vertical. And then we say if y is greater than 0, then we want to move the ground plane dot position plus equals vector3 dot up. Else position equals dot up. Or we could use vector3 down, whatever. That should do it. Let's go ahead and give it a shot. So there we have it. Let's go ahead and put in an object so we'll be able to see it when we. There's the rocket tank. Let's put in something that's got a real clear mount, like the flat mount. Is the flat mount. All right, so now when we hold Control and hit W, that's right. W is all we can hit in edit mode because of the. This is so dumb. Just disable it, Jesus. Ah, so dumb. Okay. Unity, disable Control S while playing. Disable hotkey save. Disable editor keyboard shortcuts. Oh, what a fucking pain in the stupid ass. So, um, Unity stupidly doesn't allow you to press Control S when you are doing this inside of the browser. So I would have to use Control down arrow key, as you can see. You guys won't have that problem because you guys are not going to have the editor version. But I could change it to Alt, or I could make it both Alt and Control. Nope, Alt won't work. Highlights the... so stupid. Maybe I'll make it Z. Just for now, my alternate is Z, so that I can actually get this to properly up and down. Alright, so now when you build the ship, let's see whether or not it builds on the right spot, because I might have it inverted, which would be pretty funny. Yeah, it's inverted. So let's uninvert it. Alright, looks good. Let's go ahead and test this out by putting in a 6-way split. So, let's drop it in there. Let's go ahead and rotate it to vaguely the right shape. Let's try and put some stuff on it. So, we're going to mount some little hydrogen fuel tanks on it. Go. But look, it's not the right height. So what we'll do is hit Control W. There. W again. Oh no! Huh. One of these guys is off because these should all be... I had a scale problem. One of the models in our mesh, or in our editor. In our file. One of them was scaled. This guy. Oh, if you can actually see, this is not scaled properly. Is that a half meter? Is that what I was trying for? So if we were to revert, Control R, Control, what's revert? Control S? Alt S? I can't remember. Um, Blender. Oh wait, I can. There's no scale modifiers. Let's go ahead and take a look at the tank. Let's get over here. Rotate it. Axis by axis by. Well, it might just be that it's offset wrong. Rotated it and ended up being. That's not what I want to. Look at that. Look at that. It's not even vaguely in the right spot. Look, the location is stupid. Where? Clearly see that this doesn't fit here in Blender. That means that this thing is scaled incorrectly. It probably had a scale attached to it, and then ended up screwing up when I rotated it. I should have sure that all the scales got kept. So what we need to do is pull this out so that it is scaled. Yeah. All right, now let's try it again. Put in our 6-way split. Let's go ahead and stick on some of those wonderful. As before, they're in the wrong height. So what we're going to do, I'm going to hit Control W. W. All right, look at that. Isn't that just the most beautiful thing you've seen? Now, we don't yet have a trick to pick up these guys. Thinking that when you hold Control and click, it will create a duplicate. So let's go ahead and do that. Because Control is also what lets you move the thing up and down, so it's good to keep that sort of thing all set up. So when we have our empty cursor, and we click, cursor pickup, here it is. So cursor pickup has to be modified. Here it is. We're going to say if input.getButton, get access, get button is good, and it'll be control, altered control. There it is, altered. So if this happens, we're going to actually clone it. So game object clone equals cursor dot game object dot instantiate. And then we will set this up so that our child is child equals clone dot transform. There we are. That should set it up so that we can clone this stuff. Six-way mount. Self a hydrogen tank. Let's try and set it up vaguely correct. Control up. It into space here. What we're going to do is hit Control and click. Get a duplicate. Duplicate. Nice, huh? So then we can work our way down. Duplicate. Flip. See very well, so let's head on down there. Take a look. That was pretty easy, don't you think, guys? Don't you think this is coming together? I do. And if you don't, let me know what you are hating about it. I don't like the camera very much. There are lots of things I would like the camera to do. But I think if I get used to the mouse wheel verticality, it'll probably think about it some. Anyway, you know what we should do now is save it and then load it and make sure that it works. Save ship. Do is stop, play, ship. Let's go ahead and see if we can make it look nicer. How about put in some cladding? Do we have pure meter cladding? I guess not. Oh, 3 meters, there it is. So this in. Let's go ahead and make it the camera. It's gonna work. This really gives you a strong indication of the sizes, the different sizes that you get out of these different makers of ship. I think that's pretty cool. Eh. It would require a little bit of work to try and figure out exactly what ship. Hmm. I guess I'm going to post a picture of that. And this stream is basically done. This is your last chance to ask some questions or make some comments before I leave and treat my voice with some coffee. Post to Twitter, say, this was created, saved, and loaded. Lots of features like duplication and mirroring, asymmetry. Screen shot Saturday. All right, that was fun. B. Wheatley seems to like it a fair amount, and I do too. I even like how it looks when there's no functionality involved and you're just throwing crap together like this, because obviously none of this stuff works at the moment. There's no reactor on this ship, and the engine uses a different kind of fuel than the kind of fuel you're actually storing. So, you know. All right, well, over the next week, I've got to refine the parts. That's really all I have left to do. Some bugs I want to work out here and there, but not too many. One thing I'm going to do right now, over here in the ship construction control, we have this situation where we do this cursor loaded and cursor unloaded stuff, and I'm going to make it so that doesn't happen if we're holding down the camera control button. Because if we're holding down the camera control button, then we need to not do any of that stuff. So if input.get button cam control, not input button,